Welcome to the abbreviated introduction video to Homestead or Die, the board game. So let's learn how to play. So we have a rulebook, and we have a learn to play deck. Each card has a bite-sized amount of information on it. I highly recommend going through it as a way to learn how to play to accompany this video. Well, the first thing we do to start out the game is we set out how many player mats there are for how many players. So we have 2 players in this game, and I would arrange them around the table depending on where the people are sitting. In this case, I'm just going to be playing both characters that are playing this game. We have Frodo and Sam, Frodo is of course older, and we start out with different amounts of money depending on age. So the oldest player starts out with 40, and the second oldest player starts out with 12, and all remaining players start out with 6. But in this game, we just have 2. The second thing to think about is what kind of character do you want to play? What is your Homestead character's skills? And we start out with 1 skill, and you have a chance to learn up to 4 in the game. And Samwise is of course a gardener, so he has the gardening skill. And Frodo is a scavenger. It helps him find unique objects like a ring. So we have our starting skills selected in the reverse order by age. And so in setting up the board, we have projects. And so we've shuffled the projects, and we deal out 3 starting projects to be options to purchase. We have a house selection to do. So in our players, we have the oldest player selects the house, and Frodo selects the tiny house because it's on wheels, so we can take it on a journey. And there's an occupancy limit to note on the houses. So this can hold 2 players. So you want to make sure everyone's living in a house. And we want to set up our event deck next. We select 12 good random bad news cards. So I've separated these. These are all bad news, and so we count 12 of those out. All right, and the rest get set aside for another game. We select 12 good news cards randomly. And we set the rest of the good news cards away for another game. And we select 2 very bad news cards for each player. So we have 2 players, so there's 4 cards. So we'll select 4 very bad cards randomly. And we set the rest aside. And then we shuffle these well. We have a season counting time token, so we place that in the spring of year 1 to start. And in this game, we won't be using any of the achievement cards. These are optional, additional pieces that can be selected at the beginning of the game to add complexity as well as challenge. So we'll start. On the player mat, there's a turn order, so we just follow that every season. So the first step is to progress the season, so we start out in spring of year 1. We draw an event card. Bad news, mold and mildew. Players in small houses gain 2 hearts. So we live in a small house, so we get 2 hearts, each player. And if we get 10 hearts, if any player gets 10 hearts, they die. They're eliminated from the game. The goal of the game, of course, is to survive 4 years as a community. Players can die along the way, but someone has to make it to the end to put the ring into Mordor's volcano, Mount Doom. So that's what's going on. And midway through, the market collapses. And so this is the market card. We can buy and sell things, but at some point, we're cut off from all support, and the fellowship ends, and so we have to do it on our own. And so there'll be an additional challenge, and we can't buy or sell anything on the market anymore. So we've drawn our event card. We have player actions. So each player gets 2 action tokens each season. So Sam will get 2, and Frodo will get 2. And the 4 options that we can use for our actions are set out on our player mats. So you can see that you can use a skill, learn a skill, assist a player, or build a project. So also, these are actions that are done simultaneously, so they can be done in any order. So Sam is going to do gardening. Uh-oh. It can only be done in summer and fall, and we started out in spring. Oh, silly Sam. He was a gardener, but he realizes that on the quest that maybe learning a new skill would be a good idea. So he's going to learn a new skill. And what skill is he going to pick? He's going to pick foraging. So he's going to select the foraging skill. It can be placed anywhere. That's one action of Sam's. Frodo is going to scavenge. So Frodo is scavenging. So you perform an action by placing it on the tier, the top tier that it has, and we have experience, and we gain experience the more that we use our skills. And once we've collected 2 experience here, then we would use the tier 2, and once we've collected all 6 experience, then we use tier 3. So we start out using tier 1. And scavenging can be done any season. And to perform this skill, we place the action token here, and we do what it says here. And so there's a dice icon, which means we roll 1 dice. And then if we get a 3 or greater, we get 2 resource tokens. And so these are the resource tokens. So let's see if we collected any. We rolled a 3, so we do collect 2 resource tokens, and those can be placed in the resource token bin to the left of the skill. So these represent scavenging resources. All right, what is Frodo going to do with this second action? He's going to learn a new skill as well. And the skill that he's going to learn is electrician, because he needs some skills wielding power. So he places that there. And Sam still has another action. So Sam's going to realizes he's going to help Frodo. He loves helping Frodo, and he does a good job at it. So let's see if his assist. Other players, if a skill is being used, can assist them and perform the skill at the tier 1 level. So even if someone's at a higher tier performing the skill at a more effective amount of efficiency, the other player only ever helps at tier 1. And so we get to roll another dice for Sam assisting. Let's see if Sam helps. Sam rolled a 1, and the player or the assisting player can roll. And a 1 doesn't give any more scavenging. However, as we'll see in the wrap-up, it does contribute to experience, which is a very valuable way of helping others level up their skills. So we've performed all the player actions. Now we have food, craft, and house expenses. Every season, we have to cover our food expenses and craft expenses. So we have to eat something, and when we're going about our homestead lives, we also consume materials. We use our materials, we use our tools, they wear out, we have to replace them. So we have to cover those expenses every season, as well as our house expenses. Power has to be paid every season, and our heating has to be paid every winter. So let's cover those now. Let's see if we have any resources that are all the edible food expense resource icons are here, and we don't have any edible resources. Our scavenging resource doesn't have an edible icon, a food icon here. So we can't eat these resources. And it also doesn't have a craft icon here either. So we can't craft with it or garden with it. But as you'll see later, the scavenging resource can be used for other things that is a valuable material. So we don't have any food or craft resources, so that means we have to purchase them at the market. So supplies. So we can shop for supplies for $2 each here, and we can find groceries for $2 each here. Each person, each player has to eat and has to have crafts. So for however many players you are playing, you need 1 resource token on craft, 1 resource token on food expense per player. So we have to acquire 2 groceries. So that's 2 plus 2 is 4. So if we pay 5 to the bank and get 1 money back, then we get 2 groceries. And on craft expense, if we pay 5 money, we can get 1 money back, and get 2 supplies. So we've covered our food and craft expenses. Now we have to cover our home expenses, which heating, it's not winter, so we only have to pay our power, which is 2. And Sam is going to pay them the power. This is an area where the players in the game have to negotiate who's covering the expenses and why. There are penalties if they're not covered, as outlined here. So we've covered all our expenses. Now it's the last part of the season is wrap up. So any resources or money we distribute back. We just clear it all off. Something I forgot to discuss was the projects. These were the available projects that the players could have built, which takes an action, as well as the resources in the build box. And none of them were applicable to the skills that were selected. So we're going to, during wrap up, let all of them get discarded. Any ones that you want to save and stick around, you can, but then we draw new project cards. So now we have new options for future turns. And we also clear off any action tokens, as well as transfer any action tokens that were on our skills to experience. So this one moves over to experience, and this one moves over to experience. All right, so we've covered all the tasks of one season. The next season begins, we go to summer. We draw another event. Overwhelmed. All players gain a heart. 1 heart, another heart. All players may only perform actions as a tier 1. So scavenging, since we have 2 experience here, it would perform as a tier 2. However, this season only, it only can perform at a tier 1 level because of this event. We move into we move into our player action phase. So each character gets another 2 actions. It is summer, and so gardening is available for Sam. So Sam's going to do gardening and also foraging. And Frodo is going to do electrician and also scavenging, which again, this season it's a tier 1. Normally it would be here. So the scavenging gets a die roll. So let's see. We succeeded and get 2 resources. And then electrician. To do the electrician task, it either uses 1 scavenging or 1 supply. So we can either buy supplies for $2 or we can use a scavenging resource. So we're going to use 1 scavenging resource. It consumes it. It uses it up in order to gain 2 electrician resources. So we get 2 resources by having used 1 scavenging. So we used some wire and we performed some actions to gain some electrician resources. Gardening takes 2. You gain 2 gardening resources by performing the skill. But this skill has a unique skill ability where if we consume 1 compost, we can double the amount that we gained. So the compost over here, we don't have any, we haven't collected any compost, but we can purchase compost for $2 per resource. So we can pay $2 and gain a composting resource to consume. And that makes the 2 that we gain 4, so we double it. So we get 4 gardening resources. And additionally, the foraging skill is used. So we roll a die, and if it's 3 or greater, we get 2 resources, just like scavenging. So we did roll a 6. And we get 2 foraging resources. All right, so we've done our actions, and now we have to cover our expenses. Or let's see if there's a project. There's a weaving, a hunting and fishing, a sauna. You'll find that projects help you depending on what types of skills you're using, which directions. The Sonnet is a very good card that the players are thinking that they might want to acquire in the future, but not right now, since it takes an action and some resources which they don't have. So let's cover the expenses. Food. All right, so we do now have resources that are edible. So we can take a foraging resource and place it on the corresponding icon here, and a gardening resource and place that there. Something to note is when there are 2 or more players, there has to be 2 or more different types of resources, with the exception of groceries and supplies. Those count as unique resources each one. So you can have 2 here, but since we have 1 gardening and 1 foraging, we've covered the food expenses for the 2-player game that we're playing. So in craft expenses, we do not have any crafting resources, and so we will pay. Frodo has produced some electrician resources that can be sold. So Frodo likes the idea of selling one of the resources, and it sells for 4, so gaining 4 money. And the craft expense, in order to buy supplies, at $2 each, and 2 of them, 2 plus 2 is 4. So there's 4 money, so we can collect 2 supplies and place them there. So we've covered that, and now we do have the power that we have to cover. So there's 2. So now we've covered our expenses, and the next step is to wrap up. So we clear everything off, and we move experience over. Something to note is that each skill has a maximum amount of resource tokens that can be stored. So gardening has a max of 1, but we have 3 resources here. So one option would be to sell them at $1 a piece, the extra, or another option is to compost. So we can put any edible resource, baler, forestry, or cash crop on the raw compost pile. So we'll do that. And at the end of the season, they transform and during wrap up and turn into compost. So they'll be available to use next season. So we've covered all the steps on the end of the summer, season 2. So we begin another season, fall. We begin by drawing a card. In this case, it's a bad news. Flip 1 house at random. We only have 1 house, so it flips over. So when a house flips over, it requires that you repair it with a trade skill, like an electrician, plumber, or carpentry. And so that's what the event did. Now we get to do our player actions. Oh, we wanted to skip these 2 projects during wrap up, and we can replace them with 2 more projects. Our player actions for the fall season. Frodo is going to do electrician, and Sam thinks that's a great idea and is going to assist. And Frodo is going to learn a new skill, and Frodo is going to learn. The sauna is a very nice card. So forestry, cutting down some trees, or working in the woods is not a bad idea. So getting the forestry skill, and Sam is also going to garden again, and Frodo has already performed both actions. So with the gardening, we'll use 1 compost to double the amount gained. So we're going to gain 4. And with electrician, using the skill uses 1, and the assist consumes 1 of scavenging. We could have also purchased supplies, so we consume those, and each produces 2, so we get 4. The chest freezer is advantageous for skills that have a low max, and hydropower is one way to heat a house. So we have our house that has been flipped over from the pipes leaking, and so we can use any trades to fix it. So we fortunately have some trade skills, electrician, that we can spend. We can spend one. The tiny houses only consumes one, so we use that and we flip it over. If we didn't flip it over, each player would get 3 hearts at the end of the season. We've moved into days where we're covering our expenses. So we have food, so we're going to do 1 foraging and 1 gardening resource. And we again still don't have any craft skills, and so we're going to have to pay for those. And Frodo elects to sell 1 electrician for 4 resources. And as we recall, we get 4, and then we pay 4 to purchase 2 supplies. So we've covered that, and our power is 2. So we're going to cover our power. And this time, we'll sell 2 gardening, and that gives us 2 money. And we'll take 1 and place it into compost. And so we can now wrap up. So we clear everything off. And this goes here. This goes here. These move over. And this gets cleared off. And we don't have anything exceeding the max. And we move into the next season, winter. We draw an event. Very bad news. Contentious politics. All players lose 1 action and gain a heart. So each player gains a heart and only gets 1 action token this season. So normally 2, only 1. They elected to keep all of the projects this past season, and both of them are going to spend their actions building. So Frodo's going to work on building the sauna, and Sam is going to work on building the chest freezer. So let's see how they cover those. So the chest freezer requires 2 electrician resources. Fortunately, we have 2 that we can spend here, and 1 carpentry resource. Since we do not have carpentry, but we do have money, and a carpentry resource can be purchased for 6 money. So we can pay for what we don't have, and so we can cover that. So we've built the chest freezer, and that can move down here. We can leave this on so we know that it doesn't have an effect this season. To build the sauna, there are 2 carpentry. We don't have carpentry, so it's just 12 money to pay for it. Sam's like, this is my entire amount of money that I have in my whole world, so you can pay for the whole thing like that. And now we've spent our actions, and now we can move into expenses. We have 1 gardening resource, and we've used up all our foraging resources, and so we're going to have to pay for groceries, which is 2. So we pay 5 and just getting change, so we get that back. So 2 money goes in there for the groceries, and then the craft expenses. We don't have any crafts, so we have to pay for it. We'll put 5 in and get 1 money back to pay 4 money for 2 supplies. So now we just have to cover our power, which is 2. And now, since it's winter, we do have to cover our heating bill, which is 2 as well. The fuel and power is $1 per. So we've covered our expenses, we've done our actions. Now we get to go into wrap up. Clear everything off here. We just bring these back. Clear the money off. Now we have 2 projects. We didn't actually perform any skills, so there's no experience to gain. We restock the projects, and we move into a new year, the next season. So we just continue just as it is, and we continue moving through the seasons. And when we get to winter of year 2, and each season after that, we get to start determining if the market collapses. So when we would get to winter, if we roll a 1 in winter, then the market collapses. Or if it's a 1 or a 2, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you get to the winter of year 3, it's guaranteed. So here we would roll 1 dice, and that's a 1, so the collapse would happen here. And that would mean that we turn the market card over. We can't buy or sell anything, so we have to have everything figured out how to survive without being able to use money. So in which case we would discard all the money. You can set it aside if you want. We discard a conventional job if anyone has it, and then we would draw 2 events each season, and that can be very powerfully challenging. There is a new skill action option, so players can spend one of their skill actions to barter. So you can place an action token there, and then it's like a wild card in that you can take any 2 resources that you have, use them to get any 1 resource that you need. So that's one way to cover a craft expense or food expense or some resource that's required for dealing with an event to get that figured out without having to have every single type of resource. And then you continue working through until winter of year 4 at the end of wrap up. If any of the players are still alive, at that point you win. You've survived. Congratulations. I hope you've enjoyed this introduction video.